Welcome to Thinking Like a Lawyer with your hosts Elie and Joe Patrice, talking about legal news and pop culture, all while thinking like a lawyer. Here on Legal Talk Network.
Hello, welcome to another edition of Thinking Like a Lawyer. I'm Joe Patrice. I'm joined, as always, by Elie Mystal. How are you this morning?
I'm drinking seltzer.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be healthy.
Right. I mean...
Or am I trying to prepare my system for Four Loko seltzer, which is coming back, baby. Four Loko's coming back. 14% alcohol
water.
Seltzer.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a thing, man.
This is where we are in 2019. We're drinking alcoholic water.
Calorie-free, baby.
I mean, there are other ways to be calorie-free, but yeah. Well, and why would it be? Well, it wouldn't be calorie-free. The alcohol is still calories. Like, that is still a sugar. You're just getting a mixer that's calorie-free.
Almost calorie-free.
I mean, that's a big almost. That seems to that's covering a lot of territory there.
I don't think it's going to be. People forget. People who are younger than me probably do not have as much of a firsthand knowledge of the Four Loko craze that happened basically for a year in like 2009, 2010. Yeah. The thing about Four Loko is that it was alcohol infused at that point, caffeinated beverages, and that was really the thing about the Four Loko that like fucked people up. It was the jolt of caffeine combined with, I think at that point, 12% alcohol. That was like really, really making people kind of go nuts. Also, but it didn't taste like it, right? Like I can make a rum and coke that has a lot of caffeine and a lot of alcohol, but people would absolutely, people would feel that. Four Loko, you weren't feeling it. So you were just kind of up and like hyped and then, in the morgue.
Right.
I don't think the Four Loko seltzer, which, as you pointed out, is really just a competitor to White Claw.
Yes. The argument is they've determined that a bunch of, at the risk of being stereotypical, white women really enjoy White Claw, so they've decided to make this.
Right. Because it's seltzer water, not caffeinated seltzer water, I don't think it's going to have the truly disastrous societal effects of the original Four Loko.
No, I mean, there was no disastrous effects to the original other than we got very excited about putting a band together on it, because we can do that against something like this as opposed to guns.
Right.
So that's what you're excited about. Maybe you're not even angry at all today.
No, I am still angry about something.
Oh, good.
So I'm excited about the Four Loko. I am pissed off at, I don't even know what to call these un-American jackasses, but... Okay. There's a story that went out on Twitter from Washington State. The cop a cop approached a car that was pulled over on the side of the road, seeing if the driver was in some kind of distress or whatever.
Right.
In fact, the driver was playing Pokemon Go. He had pulled over with his 8 phones. He had an 8-phone, like almost like an old school like CD case only for phones, and he was playing Pokemon Go on all 8 phones. Because he was pulled over, as opposed to like playing them while he was driving, the cop had to let him go, although he encouraged him to put the phones away. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem for me because I want that man arrested. Having kids who play Pokemon Go and having to walk all around my goddamn neighborhood in the blazing hot August sun looking for stupid freaking Pokemon that are damaging society, damaging my children's brains on a whole different fucking level because they think that like enslaving, magical creatures is like an okay thing.
Right.
But put that aside, I gotta walk all across my neighborhood to find these goddamn Pokemon. And this motherfucker here is playing with 8 phones, taking all the gyms, taking all the free balls.
Yeah.
Taking the Raichus that my kid still hasn't caught. Screw this dude. This dude needs to be like, not, for a long time, but like, a good, day in jail for this crap, I would have supported.
Ellie's angry that other people are getting balls that he's not, is what I took away from that. But
he's driving around, right? So like he's driving to an area that is full of Pokemons, then stopping his car, pulling over, pulling out his 8-phone case, and taking it all from all the kids.
Well, I know.
He's a grown-ass man.
Well, right. I don't know as though... I think your sentiment is right. I don't know as though you've thought through some of the other aspects. If he's pulled over on a highway here, he's not taking it away from any kids. This is more of a fault of why are there Pokemon on a highway. This is a place where you should not, and it should be. I don't understand why this person wasn't at least ticketed. I don't know about jail. The over-incarceration seems like a bad thing. But why this isn't a ticket, you aren't supposed to be pulling over willy-nilly on freeways unless you're, in distress. I mean, from your version of the story, it sounds like that's what kind of road we're talking about, a highway at least.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know Washington. Do they have highways in Washington State? I'm not
somewhere between their dirt roads, they've got something. Yeah, no. So they have real roads. If they are...
The tweet just says, Sergeant Kyle contacted a vehicle on the shoulder this evening.
Okay. I mean... But yes, you're not supposed to be pulling over unless you're in distress, and because that presents all sorts of dangers that we don't want people to, or helping somebody in distress. I guess you could be doing also, because we don't want that. This is a problem with the game itself.
Well, it's also the distracted driving, right? I mean, they couldn't get him for distracted driving since he was physically stopped.
Right.
But one imagines that he had to at least be keeping an eye on his phones to know where to pull over.
Maybe, although they make alerts, they ding and stuff. Like I'm not altogether sure that's as big a problem as, creating a traffic hazard by pulling over and getting out of your car. Well, or maybe he didn't get out. I guess you could be close enough, but that's a problem. And I think it's a problem from the company's perspective that they have Pokemon in places that are encouraging people to stop on the shoulder of highways.
Encouraging assholes, you mean?
Well, I mean, I don't really care about that.
You don't care about the moral angle, just the legal one.
Your argument for the moral angle is that he's taking it from children, but my position is if it's along the shoulder of a highway, I actually don't necessarily think children should be getting that Pokemon either. Like, I don't want children to be pulling over on the side of roads and getting out to try and get Pokemon. I think there's a more broad issue at play there. But that's a fair point, and I think it's probably something to be punished. Because the point of the game is to walk and,
and explore your surroundings and, dehydrate your fucking father.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good exercise.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know why I'm acting like I'm the one who does most of it. Like I do one. My wife does like 8 of these fucking trips. Right?
Right. I mean, I assumed that's what that was. Okay. So, with that said, what we thought we would talk about, another sport other than Pokemon training, we thought we would talk a little bit about sports this week because there have been some sports stories in the news, in the legal news, that we felt like we couldn't really cover in the pages of Above the Law appropriately, so we've decided to discuss them here. What do you want to start with of our options?
Well, let's start with the one that we did cover in Above the Law.
Ah, yes.
Because it involves the most odious university in the land.
I mean, ODS. Okay. Yes, so this is where the full disclosure comes in. You root to the extent you have a rooting interest in football anymore, and you don't because you don't watch football anymore, you say.
Right.
You say. So
I stand with Colin.
Yeah.
I say.
Right. He was allowed to play in college. Anyway, the point is you root for Michigan,
right.
Which has a school to its south that is its rival. And that school, Ohio State University.
Well, did you say it right, Joe?
I believe I did say it right, but people from Ohio State will be quick to say that it's the Ohio State University because, they're afraid there's some other entity that wants to horn in on that vaunted name. So in this, weird delusion that there's some sort of brand confusion out there, they refer to themselves as the Ohio State University.
I just want to, we just need to emphasize for non-college football fans, there is an Ohio University. And
University of Ohio, yeah.
Sure, there have been people who have been confused between the University of Ohio and Ohio State University. The does nothing to assuage that confusion.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes. No, that is true.
It's the state that was supposed to tip you off to which one is which.
Yeah. So what we learned this week is that a patent and trademark attorney brought to the world's attention by, through his job filing around things that had been put into the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, that the legal department of the Ohio State University had filed for a trademark on the word "the." So, for those of you who use the word "the" in your day-to-day parlance, it is in jeopardy because Ohio State wants to use the word "the" on their paraphernalia, and they want to have a trademark on anything that just says the word "the."
Yeah, exactly. They want to sell apparel with just the word "the" on it, because "the" is supposed to let you know that we're talking about the Ohio State University, and that's why they want the trademark on what I believe is the most common word in the English language.
It is. It is, in fact, the most common word in the English language.
Even beyond there are other universities that use "the" quite prominently in their, nickname or mascots, whatever.
Yeah.
What springs to mind is the U.
Yes.
Now, if you're not a college football fan, you might think there are quite a few U's in this country. But if you're a college football fan, you probably know that the U refers to the University of Miami.
Yes.
You could sell a T-shirt with the U on it and put it in, appropriately orange and popsicle color, creamsicle colors, and people would know what you were talking about.
Exactly. There is a brand identification with that logo and the way in which that logo, which is a U, that means the U. And that is a thing that has developed some market awareness. What has not is a block capital word "the" randomly on a shirt.
Right.
Which is why this is a ridiculous claim. But,
Can we talk about the excellent trolling of Michigan?
We can. We can now turn to... So Michigan, not to allow their rivals to make a fool of themselves without joining in, chose to send out an official tweet with a picture that looks like a logo that they're creating that has their, U of M thing, but with the words "of" capitalized. And then they sent this picture out with the letters TM. It was glorious trolling of the poor people in the Ohio State University legal department. Yeah, so this is though, I'm going to say, a little bit more indicative of a bigger problem that's going on, which is...
I just want to, before we get
serious,
I just want to point out that Michigan consistently whoops Ohio State in every facet except for the actual football.
Except for the actual football part.
Academics, their legal department, their basketball team. It's just the actual football games that Michigan still has problems with. So So I just want to put that out, but you're right. There is a larger issue here that is worth surfacing.
Which is intellectual property kind of abuse, and this idea that it's getting out of hand, and we see it a lot with these copyright and patent trolls who just try to throw something in and then go after somebody for largely specious infringement and try to extort people basically to pay out because the law has reached a point where it's so broad that they feel they can get away with that. And these sorts of folks exist, and part of that world is what Ohio State wants to do is... It's not even clear whether or not they want to make the apparel as much as they want to stop anybody from using the word "the" with red on it, because then that might be something that they feel they should be getting paid for.
Right. It's not exactly. It's not just that Ohio State wants to make dumbass t-shirts. Mm-hmm. It's that they want to stop anybody else from making dumbass t-shirts. And they want to stop anybody else from making dumbass memes. They want to stop anybody else from making dumbass GIFs. And they feel like this is... They're trying to abuse intellectual property law in order to accomplish this, and Ohio State is not nearly the only people who do this. Part of it is internet culture, where what you have is corporate interests realizing that there is money to be made in memeing and gifing and and the pictorial representations of what you're trying to talk about, and they want their cut is really all this is. And the law has not... advance is not the right word, developed quickly enough to understand that these corporate interests are not making legitimate good faith claims in order to protect brand integrity. They're just trying to as you might hear in The Godfather 2, they're just trying to wet their beak into somebody else's business.
Yeah. And, well, I guess at this point we should, that's fair. We should transition at this point to the other intellectual property sports story of the week. You want to let us in on the Phillie Phanatic?
So, the Phillie Phanatic is a mascot for, and full disclosure time, I'm a Met fan. So fuck the Phillie Phanatic.
Yeah, you're actually adverse to everybody we chose to talk about today. What a fucking coincidence.
The Phillie Phanatic is a mascot that debuted in 1979. It is some kind of furry duck-like animal thing that jumps around at the Philly Stadium, first Veterans Stadium, and now Lincoln Financial Field. No, Citizen. I forget which one they call their goddamn stadium now. Anyway, it struts around at Philly games, kind of playing games with the fans, getting into fake fights with other players, whatever. He's a mascot. The point of the Phillie Phanatic is that whenever you think of like a modern mascot, the Phillie Phanatic is one of the first, one of the OG of what modern mascotry has become. Okay, fine. Phillie Phanatic was made by a couple, commissioned by the Phillies to conceive of it in 1979. They were paid something like $4,000 for the trademark, which reverted to the Phillies. But the GM at the time didn't want to pay them $1,300 for the copyright as well. So the Phillies got the copyright, but left got the trademark, but left the copyright with the couple who created the Phanatic. Okay. Fast forward to like 1985, and the Phanatic is a huge thing. And then they're like, I should have probably bought that copyright. So instead of buying the copyright for $1,300, they buy the copyright for $250,000 paid to the couple, which then gives the Phillies copyright over the Phanatic, quote, forever.
Well, and now are they buying the copyright, or are they buying a license to use this copyright forever?
Exactly. Right? By giving them this license to forever, that, as people who listen to the show hopefully know, unless you're a 0L, forever is not really a legal term.
It tends not to be a legal term, no.
Perpetuity is not in perpetuity. We have rules about perpetuity, right? Forever is not a legal word. So if I'm reading a contract that says I have a license to this thing forever, I'm thinking like, well, it ain't really forever. And that's apparently what the couples thought. It is kind of standard practice, standard procedure in copyright law that after 35 years, artists have the opportunity to go back and renegotiate their copyright license. This makes a lot of sense, right? If you are Michael Jackson and you make Thriller and you sell it for a song, no pun intended, 35 years later, it's fucking Thriller. Right. You should have an opportunity to be like, all right, Sony, maybe I should get a little bit more money for your continued use. That's the other thing, right? 35 years later, if the copyright is still being continually used, that's a good indication that it has present day value that could not have really been kind of conceived of 35 years prior. So 35 years later, here we are in 2019, and the couple which has made the Phillie Phanatic wants their copyright back, or more likely, wants the Phillies to pay them at this point millions of dollars to license the copyright for another 35 years. Mm-hmm. The Phillies don't want to pay it. And so there is a chance, probably a good one, that the Phillie Phanatic will become a free agent, with a couple saying that they are willing to sell the copyright to any other team, sports bar, whatever, who wants to buy the copyright, wants to license the copyright to the Phanatic.
I mean, you know what the ultimate troll would be? The Mets should buy the Phanatic. Not as a mascot, I mean to relief pitch.
That's kind of the ultimate troll of the Mets, you jackass. We've won like 19 of like the last 22 games.
You have.
We're on the come.
Yeah.
It would be quite trolling for the Mets to buy the Phanatic and just put it like, make it like Mr. Mets' pet.
Yeah.
Would kind of be my favorite thing. The Mets are historically cheap, so I doubt that's going to happen. But yeah, it is. And I started the story where I did because it all goes back to 1979 and this miserly fucking GM not willing to pay an artist, a creator, an extra $1,300.
Yep. Yeah. The Fanatic is one of those mascots. If I recall the history correctly, it was kind of concocted after they decided that the San Diego Chicken was getting super popular and they wanted some kind of a response. So they just threw some money around and said, throw something together, and did not want to pay for it.
And the couple that they found, I mean, it wasn't like they found just some random people off the street. They were puppet makers. They worked for the Henson, the Jim Henson.
They helped create
studio,
Miss Piggy,
right? Like these were not. And I point out their qualifications also to point out that like people who make art are talented, right? They're professionals. They have skills, and this is how they make money. So when you try to like screw them out of like a couple of bucks, like not only is it again miserly and corporate, like they're gonna try to find a way to fuck you, right? Like they're not gonna forget that. Yeah. So
that
GM is probably dead, but he's certainly long gone. But the Phillies are now still paying for his either will pay for his mistakes. Or will lose their popular little furry whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Philadelphia's gonna be fine because Philadelphia has Gritty now.
Well, that's the thing. They would have to retcon Gritty's origin because I believe part of Gritty's origin is that he's related to the Fanatic. So.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's in the official the canon backstory for that. Transitioning
to other ways that people aren't paid.
Yes. So there was yet another court decision, again, from the Ninth Circuit, where a lot of these have been heard, that has made the determination that college athletes don't deserve to get paid. So.
And just for full disclosure, I'm a fan of the Second Circuit, so fuck no, I'm just.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, in this instance, it was a slightly different argument than some of these others. College athletes had big success in the Ninth Circuit, at least the district level, with the argument that selling their likenesses to places like EA to make video games, that is something that they deserve some recognition for, that you can't be selling their license. And that is ultimately what drove EA from the market of making college video games, because rather than, throw money at them, they decided to cancel one of their bigger franchises. So,
which should be coming out this week if EA was just.
It would have been a few weeks ago. I think.
Just willing to pay. If they were just willing to pay the athletes a little bit of money for using their likeness, we would still have EA college football.
But the argument in this case was slightly different. This argument was, and what's going on is a lot of people are making a lot of very different arguments on why athletes deserve to be paid in different court actions. This is a interesting different angle that a USC linebacker came up with, and it failed, much like USC's defense over the last couple of years. And his argument was that there's a minimum wage requirements should apply, and that yes, we get scholarships and all, but when you divide out what we're being given for the amount of work that we are performing at the behest of the school, then we should be getting more. So it's not going for the millions like some of these cases are. It was actually a much more refined argument about how they deserve some more money. Ultimately, the problem for this case was the problem that befalls a lot of these arguments, which in how these schools get away with a lot of this, is it's hard to tell who you're supposed to be suing. Are you going after the school? Well, the school might be willing to pay you, but the NCAA tells them they can't pay people. And then so you're going after the NCAA. Well, the NCAA doesn't really have any kind of privity of contract with these players. We're just a nonprofit rule-making organization. Is it the conference that has all of the agreements as far as that's actually making all the money off of this stuff rather than school? So it's unclear who to go after. Ultimately,
Here they went after the conference.
Here the conference and the NCAA. Right. And ultimately it got kicked on the... Well, it's not their fault.
Yeah, well, they said that the conference and the NCAA were not employers under the California minimum wage law, which is another way that they are able to screw over athletes. That they by the classification, all the things that one would think of that are work, that are the indices of working for somebody, is what student athletes have to do. But all of the indices that would indicate that a person isn't an employer, generally universities are able to avoid. Certainly the conferences in the NCAA are able to avoid when it comes to college athletics. The employer in those situations, if any, is going to be the university itself, not the conference. But as Joe just said, the university then just turns around and says like, "Oh, we'd love to pay them a minimum wage. Unfortunately, these guys, the NCAA, what do you want us to do?"
Yeah,
it's a Kafkaesque circle of. You can't ever find the person who was both in charge of making the rules that you can't get paid and in charge of not paying you at the same time, right? That's how they've kind of set up the system.
So the show House, one of the recurring gags on House, was always
lupus.
It's lupus, and it's like it's not lupus. The guess was that was the cause of whatever the affliction was, and it wasn't lupus. You don't want to say like RICO is the word in law that you don't want to say because it's not really RICO.
Pope Hat. Well, you say RICO 3 times, Pope Hat shows up on your Twitter feed.
Exactly.
It's bad news.
But when you have organizations that hide who's actually doing things in a way to avoid prosecution, that is what that's all about. And
it becomes at least RICO adjacent.
So it's unfortunate, and I mean there are benefits to college athletics that go beyond money. But listen, if you want to have, and when what bugs me are when people try to make the argument like, well, what about these other sports and their money and whatever? And it's like, sure, and those sports, don't have like $26 million TV contracts. And that's the part. If you want to run a sport where the people who buy tickets to the stadium is the only revenue that's going on, then maybe you don't pay the players. But at the point that you're selling out their TV contracts and stuff, you're now making gratuitous money off of them.
I'm amenable. I don't know that I fully agree with that. I'm amenable to that. I'm also amenable to just then pay all the athletes, pay every student athlete a minimum wage thing. I was on work study when I was in school. Yep. For those who weren't, like work study is, you get loans from the government, but there are certain jobs that you have to do term time in order to kind of earn the stipend part of your work study, right? People did dorm crew. That's cleaning up people's dorm rooms and toilets, right? I worked in a library. Like there were various work study jobs. How in the fuck is playing football or basketball not a work study job, right? Yeah. Like it's
theoretically, those kids aren't getting loans because they're getting full rides, but or many of them are anyway.
I'm right, but exactly the point, right? Like I can make myself a little bit of extra money while I'm a college student by cleaning toilets or working in the library, but I can't make myself a little bit of extra money by playing football. It makes no sense. And at some point, like what has been clear, and one of the things that this case I think shows again, is that the courts are not going to be the ones to ultimately stop it. So it's really going to take government intervention. And whenever you talk about government intervention, you have people saying, oh, these politicians have way more important things to do than worry about what happens. Man, first of all, they ain't doing shit right now, just at the moment, right? Congress and the Senate are gridlocked. Nothing's actually happening, right? B, it is an important problem, not just for the lower income students that these universities exploit, but you're talking about a $1 billion industry that is based on unpaid labor of young people. That should be offensive to the consciousness of the country. Yeah. And it's going to take actual elected officials to make a change to it, which means it's going to take actual voters to demand that their elected officials make the change to it. And I kind of don't know why that is, why there isn't that, because the people who most care about college sports are very wealthy people who are fans of universities that are gonna be able to frickin' pay,
Yeah.
Right? The Ohio State already doesn't have a problem, certainly won't have a problem in the future of purchasing the top talent. If you want to, if you're a Michigan fan and you want to beat Ohio State like ever, like the only thing that you can think of to do is like maybe I can go buy some players from Florida as opposed to having to try to recruit them.
I don't think the problem is recruiting in this instance. But
I'm going to say the problem is recruiting. That's what I'm going to say, because Jim Harbaugh is a great man.
He's certainly a great advocate of public interest,
legal
aid. Yeah.
My point is that college football and college basketball fans usually support large universities that will easily weather the storm of having to pay athletes either a little or a lot. That's not going to hurt the product on the field, as they say. The people who are most likely to get hurt from a pay to play kind of situation are smaller universities and whatever, at which point it's like, well, to me it's okay, and maybe not everybody's going to agree with me. To me it's okay if like you have one level of college sports, you could call that, I don't know, Division One, that is playing for national championships and their players are getting paid lots of money, whatever. And then a second division of college sports, perhaps Division 2 or 3, where their players are truly playing just for the love of the game and the blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. I mean, make it contingent on what the schools are actually bringing in. If they bring in $800 million, then divide up and say 25% of that has to go to the people who were responsible for that, or whatever it is, but something. And then
pay all and then that's why I was saying earlier, and then pay all the players. Pay the soccer players, pay the baseball players.
I'm even cool not doing that. Like, and you can say 75% of it goes to supporting those other sports, and if those other sports also get on TV, then, they get a share of that. But we can safely recognize that certain sports are getting more of the revenue without using that as a cudgel. Because one of the things that Title IX point is that this is often used as a bad excuse for not paying people is, well, we can't pay football because then we would have to cut all the women's sports that don't make money. And that's not true. You could easily say you don't need $30 million a year to maintain your sports program. Well, no, 30 maybe you do, but the massive amounts of money that they're getting, you don't need all of that to do that, and nor do the players need to be paid like NFL players to do what they're doing. But you can give the players involved some cut of that. I mean, and you do it already. You're paying these coaches $12 million.
I was about to say, we're not even saying pay the players as much as the coaches.
Right.
We're still letting you pay your coaches $10 million a goddamn year. The other thing, so there's that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, this whole argument, oh, well, then we wouldn't have any money for the women's teams. It's like, you're already giving the coaches millions.
Right. The other bullshit part of this point, and this is where I thought at some point the courts might stop them, and they just decided to not. We can kind of debate and talk about the structure of how to pay the players and da-da-da. The fact that there are people in this country who are not allowed to make money off of their likeness, that are not allowed to make money that other outside the university system entirely, that other people, sponsors, are willing to pay for them, that we just won't allow them to get that money and still let them practice their sport. That's just fucked. That has no basis in law or morality or ethics, right? Like if I'm a college student and I'm really good at playing the piano, and the New York Philharmonic wants to give me, $10,000 to come give a concert while I'm a student. Not only can I go take the $10,000 to do the concert, my university is going to clap for me and be very happy, and then I'm going to go back and be able to like march in the goddamn band. Like there's going to be no fucking problem, right? So the fact that a high level college athlete who is trying to go pro can't hire an agent.
Yeah,
think about that. They can't hire a lawyer.
Yeah.
According to these rules. So the inability for the star players to just go make the money not from the university that is just out there waiting for them, that is some of the biggest bullshit in the world.
Yeah, and I mean, I can kind of see the argument of restricting their access to agents only on the grounds that tease this out a little bit. If you had an unrestricted control over your own likeness, then right now the school controls the likeness and the school took all the money. That's what the case that's been going on out there has, raised questions about, which ultimately led to EA having to stop making video games about this. And so that was a good argument. But there's an argument that likeness is such a loose thing. You don't want a situation where the wealthy booster says, "Oh, I'm gonna put your face on a T-shirt," and therefore gives one player millions of dollars to go to a school and get around the usual recruiting violence. There are reasons why that could be problematic, but that's a reason why the school should be forced in a very fiduciary way, like in a fiduciary role. They should have to act as those people's agents in good faith, subject to all fiduciary kind of responsibilities. And they should be able to, the school should be in a position to say, well, that's a bullshit deal. You can't take it because that's illegal. That's against the rules generally. But EA making a video game, we will be your agent. We negotiated it's going to be this much. Here's your cut of that. Like, I can see that world so that you can preserve you don't want, a car dealership in Dallas and Fort Worth somehow making TCU or SMU the greatest team ever, like they did back in the day, and getting
Pony Express,
right? But you can do something.
No, I see that point, but I think the way to deal with that point is to actually pay the players. So I
agree.
I'm full on like you should pay the players, and if you pay the players, then I understand not letting them do these other things.
Right.
My point is simply that if you're not even going to pay them, then both not paying them and not allowing them to make the money that they could make on their own.
Oh yeah,
that's
no.
We do not do that to any other person in our society, really.
Right.
Except for big time college football and basketball athletes.
Right. And it's ostensibly for this parity argument, but or fairness argument, but it just isn't.
We don't do that to babies. We don't do that to if a baby can go out and make $10,000 from Gerber, we let that baby go make $10,000.
Right. Again,
we hold the money for 18 years, but we let that baby go make $10,000.
Again, the point though is the competitor is preventing one school from having enough outspending people. So I get why there are restrictions on being able to give money, but you got to do something here.
If knockoff Gerber wants to compete, they can go hire the best babies.
Right, but the point is that it's not a competitive league, and you aren't charged with trying to maintain competitive equality.
I'm with you there.
Yeah. But yes, even with those rules do exist, I get that, but you need to do something to help out. Anyway, all right. With that, we've gone on for quite some time. Yeah,
it's a long one.
Thanks, everybody. We may not be hitting your box next week because it's Labor Day. So we won't be necessarily in there. We might put something together short for you.
Somebody's going away.
Well, right. The ILTA conference, the International Legal Technology Association's annual conference is happening, and so that's another reason we might not be in a position to record. We'll be there and meeting and hearing about some cool legal tech stuff to, streamline the process of the legal practice. So we'll do that. We'll have some stories when we get back about that. In the meantime, you should read Above the Law. You should subscribe to this podcast, give it reviews, give it more than just stars. Write something about how cool it is. That way that triggers things in the algorithm to make more people listen to it. You should follow at Elie NYC and at Joseph Patrice on Twitter. You should be listening to the rest of the offerings of the Legal Talk Network and the Jabot, which is our other Above the Law podcast. And I already said read Above the Law, but do that. You also do that. And follow at ATL Blog too, which is the official Above the Law account. Cool. With everything said, that's it.
Peace.
Bye, all.
If you'd like more information about what you've heard today, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com. You can also find us at AboveTheLaw.com, ATLRedline.com, iTunes, RSS, Twitter, and Facebook. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.